Now, the fallout from last week's interviews with contenders to be the next Chief Justice of South Africa continues. The General Counsel of the Bar says that Advocate Dali Mpofu brought the profession into disrepute. It has added its voice to others calling for Mpofu's replacement on the Judicial Service Commission, which conducted the interviews and has made a recommendation to the President. To discuss, we're now joined by the Chair of the General Counsel of the Bar, Craig Watt-Pringle. Advocate, thank you for joining us. Can you firstly explain, Dali Mpofu is Senior Counsel, he's been Chair of the Johannesburg Bar Council, so representing advocates in various capacities, and some might have assumed he was representing advocates on the Judicial Service Commission. How was he chosen firstly to be there?
Good afternoon. The way in which Mr. Mpofu was chosen was that he was nominated by the General Counsel of the Bar, which has, as a matter of convention, nominated two advocates to represent the advocate's profession, because that is what is constitutionally provided for in Section 178 of the Constitution. So the nomination traditionally comes from the General Counsel of the Bar, but it is the President who appoints. Now, at the time of Mr. Mpofu's appointment, there was, as there still is now, a convention within the General Counsel of the Bar that one of the two nominees would be put forward by Advocates for Transformation, which is an organization within the General Counsel of the Bar. In other words, its members, certainly at the time, were also members of the GCB, and the general membership would put forward the other nomination. So it was Advocates for Transformation who put forward the name of Mr. Mpofu, and then that was in turn put forward by the General Counsel of the Bar in terms of that arrangement.
All right, so that's why you say you plan to speak to the Advocates for Transformation. Has any discussion been held? Any idea whether that grouping within your grouping has any issue with the Advocates' performance?
I don't want to speak for them, but it has certainly been advised to me via the National Chairman, Mr. Durant's SC, that for some time they've been considering replacing Mr. Mpofu, not necessarily concerning the way in which he's conducted himself, but rather because they say that the term that was originally envisaged for him has in fact expired. Now, I'll just add that would be a domestic arrangement, because the Constitution itself does not limit the period for which a commissioner falling into that category can serve.
All right. Can we talk about some of the major issues around what he said during those interviews? Advocate Dali Mpofu's joke with the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Mandisa Maya, suggesting there may have been some intimate relationship, sexual innuendo. Then it became clear it was a joke. He spoke to us, Advocate Mpofu spoke to us earlier in the week and said it was clearly a joke, and in fact him and her have a long-running joke about this issue. Are you taking it all too seriously?
Well, let me first of all say that I don't think that was the most serious aspect of his conduct, which concerned the GCB and the profession. I do think that joke or no joke, it was in very poor taste given the occasion. It's one thing to make a joke like that at a cocktail party. It's an entirely different matter to do that when you are part of an interview process in relation to a candidate. And I might add, a candidate whom it was abundantly clear Mr. Mpofu favoured from the beginning. Now, he's entitled to favour that candidate, but it must be understood in the context of the manner in which he treated that candidate's rivals, as it were, for the post. And that puts an entirely different context on the matter.
All right, so is the major concern for you the way he addressed the Judge President, Duncan Mlambo? He brought up rumours that he had been involved in sexual harassment.
Yes, let me just make a number of things clear. First of all, bear in mind that Mr. Mpofu is there not to represent a political party or a political faction. He is there to represent the advocate's profession. The advocate's profession has respect for the bench. We show respect for the bench. We value the independence and the dignity of the bench, because all of that is in support of the rule of law, which is, of course, absolutely central to our calling as advocates. If one doesn't have faith in the legal system and in the judiciary, and that there will be respect for the judiciary, then what would we be selling to our clients when we say, if you have a dispute, let's go and get it resolved in court? So when a commissioner who's put there by the profession to represent the values and interests of the advocate's profession then does what he's not entitled to do in his ordinary practice as an advocate, which is to make allegations of a highly defamatory nature without one iota of evidence, then that is nothing short of improper conduct. We are taught as pupils already that when we draft affidavits or pleadings or make submissions to a court, it is considered unethical and therefore unprofessional to make an allegation or be party to an allegation knowing that there's no evidence to support it. I beg your pardon, a defamatory allegation specifically. We may not do it. So if you can't do it in court, then how can it be proper to do it in the JSC? And then the person against whom you make these allegations is none other than a long-serving, highly respected judge president of the biggest division in the country, who has also served on the Supreme Court of Appeal, who was also judge president of the Labour Appeal Court and headed up the entire Labour Court edifice. That is the person that you choose to make those allegations against, acknowledging that you have no evidence for it whatsoever. Now, that can only be interpreted, and as it has widely been interpreted, as an attempt to smear Judge President Mlambo.
Yeah. The reason you can't say things unsubstantiated in court is because by bringing up rumors, then you can put that rumor in people's mind. They start to wonder. On the other hand, what Advocate Dali Mpofu is suggesting is that these rumors are apparently so rife in the hallways that he was actually helping the judge president by bringing them up so he could deny them and clear the air, as it were. Your comment on that?
I'm sorry, I regard that as somewhat disingenuous. If the rumors were baseless to begin with, then the probability is that the rumors were started for nefarious purposes. It's the easiest thing in the world to start a whispering campaign if you don't have to put up evidence. What Mr. Mpofu did was to put it on the very stage in which the judge president was being considered for the highest judicial office in the land. And I also point out that in the end, that line of questioning was ruled out of order and struck for the record for what that is worth, because by that stage the damage was done. But the Judge Petse, who was chairing the JSC's proceedings, ruled it out of order eventually. So with respect, even on an official basis, what Mr. Mpofu says is in my view not correct.
Yeah. Advocate, so you've said some serious things that he's undermining, not only the way that advocates are seen, but the whole legal profession. You suggested earlier he may have a political agenda. This is improper conduct. So what happens now? What will the General Counsel of the Bar do? What powers do you have, if any, to censure colleagues?
Can I just add that the other aspect of the conduct to which we took exception was the failure to warn Justice Mlambo that even if one accepts Mr. Mpofu's version that he was really giving him the opportunity to clear the air, why did he not then tell the judge president before and say, listen, I'm going to raise this in order to give you an opportunity to deal with it? Then at least the judge president was not ambushed. But to answer your question, the position is that as I mentioned earlier, the term of office of a commissioner is not limited, but the organized profession can at any stage go to the president and say, we now want to put forward another nominee for the position currently occupied by Mr. Mpofu, and then it would be the prerogative of the president to make a new appointment, which by necessary implication would mean that Mr. Mpofu would vacate his position.
Yeah.
If, as I understand AFT's position to be that Mr. Mpofu went there on the understanding that his term was 2 years, then they could also impose upon him to honour that and put forward another name.
Finally, that doesn't stop him being a very high-profile advocate on high-profile cases in this country. In some respects, still representing your profession, as it were. Does that bother you?
Well, it's publicly known that there are pending disciplinary proceedings against him, both in the Legal Practice Council and in the Johannesburg Bar. I'm not going to comment on the possible outcome of those. I have before voiced my concern, and I'll voice it preferably now in the context of these Judicial Service Commission hearings, that Mr. Mpofu appears very clearly to walk in lockstep with Mr. Malema. Mr. Malema is unashamedly a politician, and he's perhaps entitled to behave like one. But whether the profession wants its representative behaving like a politician and in a partisan and factional manner, that's a different question. And judging by the very strong support that the GCB has for the stance it's taken, and in fact, the many requests we've had over a period of time to take exactly this step, I believe that we've indicated in doing it.
All right, thank you for your time tonight. That was the chair of the General Council of the Bar, Craig Watt-Pringle.